Welcome to Awakened Motherhood, the podcast where mothers share their powerful stories of healing and empowerment. I am your host, Amanda Quick, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and advocate. In each episode, we dive deep into the stories of mothers who have overcome adversity, found their fierce feminine power, and embraced transformative parenting. Whether you're a mother driven to fight for your children or someone with a story burning inside you, this podcast is for you. Together, we'll explore themes of resilience, self-trust, and healing from our traumatic experiences, all spotlighting the profound journeys of awakened mothers. Join us for a space of naked authenticity, deep inspiration, and genuine connection. Embrace the divine feminine and discover your own warrior mama within. Welcome to Awakened Motherhood, where your story is the spark for change.
All right, everybody, welcome to Awakened Motherhood. I am your host, Amanda Quick, and I am super excited to introduce our guest today. Her name is Chenelle Ellie, so my apologies, Chenelle Ellie, and she is a licensed therapist who is also a mother of two, and she specifically helps women who have a difficult relationship with their mom and relationship challenges that cause anxiety. And she has a mother hunger group that really supports women who are struggling with that relationship, as well as offers individual therapy in her licensed states. So welcome so much to the show. I'm so happy to have you on. We had amazing conversations in the pre-session, so I'm really excited to kick this off today. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. I shared a little bit about what you do, but I'd like to go back, kind of before you started doing those things. And, what was your life like before you really stepped into, focusing on people help their relationship with their moms, and, what catalyzed this change for you?
So I feel like just a lot of people pleasing. And it's interesting, like as a therapist, it's kind of my job to help people kind of figure out like the root cause of specific things that they want to work on and the specific things that they don't like about themselves and what they want to change. And when people think about therapists, they're just like, oh, they have it all together. They're able to like talk about their feelings and identify their feelings and talk through it with other people and communicate well. And that's just, it's bull. Like, no, it's so hard.
No, my mother was a marriage and family therapist. I will tell you, she's great with other people.
Yeah. It's because our kids trigger you. Like, your kids will trigger the crap out of you. And I feel like that's when I really started my journey of like changing some of the things about myself. As soon as I became pregnant, I changed. I shifted. And then my mom passed away in 2023. And then I did a complete change then too. It's like these situations that happen in your life that kind of take you, like make you realize like, wow, like, no, I'm not doing well. There's some things that I need to adjust. So I think before I became a mom, I was such a people pleaser, but it wasn't like the picture perfect type of people pleaser that you'd be able to identify it. I feel like I faked it a lot to where like I didn't see it and other people didn't see it in me.
But like behind the scenes, everything was about the unsaid expectations.
Yeah. Like even to the point where my husband always makes fun of me, and it's funny now, but he always makes fun of me because he's just like, you don't have any hobbies. Like, what are your hobbies? So when we first got together, he was like, what? He was like, I like to hunt and fish and do things with my hands. And what do you do? And I'm just like, I hang out with my friends. So
I do whatever they want.
Yeah. I'm a great daughter and a great granddaughter. I take care of my family. What do you mean? What are hobbies?
Right. Well, and honestly, guilty right here. Like, super resonant here because especially after I became a mom, but like even before that, it was whatever anybody else wanted to do. I was happy to go along for it, right? Happy to, go for a hike, I'm in. You want to go shopping, I'm in. Like, I didn't even have the knowing that I could like have an opinion, really, because I would rather not rock the boat or do something with somebody else. That was more, and I attracted myself to people who like had that opinion and want to do the specific thing and can make those decisions because I didn't know how to.
Yeah.
And it's funny because as a child, I was not like that. But as I entered my teenage years and my young adult years, the programming is pretty strong in women on how you're supposed to behave.
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's so interesting because I think the people around me, they have these certain views of the person that I am, of like a very outgoing person who speaks her mind and sets really strict boundaries, and people praise me for it. And it's interesting because I was talking to somebody about it and they were just like, yeah, like your family must have really supported that and like encouraged that side of you. And I didn't have that. I'm like, I didn't have that either.
Right.
Like my family probably feels like I'm a crazy person that's always so angry, or I have to have the last word. Like I feel like that's what they think of me. And I just can't explain it. It's just like a visceral reaction in my body. Like I can't bullshit around. I hope we can curse here.
But no, you're good. You're just talking.
Yeah,
we're talking to mom.
Yeah,
like, let's be real.
Yes, I cannot bullshit around. Like, it's just something inside of me. Like, if I don't like you, you can see it on my face. You can see it in my demeanor. If I'm not happy, you can see it. Like, I literally just can't. And I wish I could. Sometimes I wish I could just kind of fake it so that I can make other people happy and not mad at me and not start stuff. But I literally cannot. So.
Well, I'm going to applaud that. I actually think that it's a superpower if we're not able. I'm the worst liar on the planet. You can tell if they're trying. It's pretty ridiculous. I don't bother anymore. And I will keep myself out of situations if I feel like I'm just going to trigger whatever. Because sometimes it's not helpful. But for the most part, if I'm there, and I'm invited there, I'm going to speak whatever is on my mind because I'm incapable of that.
Yeah.
And, I think that, for people like us doing that, there's all of the things that led up to not being able to keep your mouth shut, right? All of the experiences we've had. And some of it comes from like childhood and part of who we are. But a lot of times it also comes from the experiences we've had and the relationships we've had and had to work through.
Yes.
So will you tell me a little bit? You talked about the challenging relationship with your mom and now she's passed over, but can you talk about what that was like? Like what the relationship was like before she was.
Yeah. So my mom was a single mom. So she divorced my dad when I was like maybe 2 or 3. I have no memories of them being together. And then for a while, when we lived in Nashville, I would go to my dad's house. He would take me to school, pick me up. She would pick me up from my dad's house. So I saw them every day and I was like a happy little girl. And then she met this guy and we moved to Alabama. And I think that's when everything kind of shifted for me. I was about 7 years old. And I remember being so happy because I was getting like a sister and a brother, like step siblings, because I'm an only child. And I enjoyed my time there, but I think that's when it started where I noticed that, well, no, I didn't know. So this is hindsight. I did not know this as a child. I don't know if my mom was aware, but my dad was doing a lot of drugs. And now what I know is that during the summers when I would come and stay with him, and I would stay with him for at least 4 or 5 summers before he ghosted me. But when I would go and stay with him, he would try to go cold turkey and not do the drugs. So he was just highly irritable. So I would go into those summers going like, okay, I'm not going to do anything wrong. I'm going to cook. I'm going to clean. I'm going to do all the things right. And he's not going to get mad and he's not going to hit me. He's not going to do all these things. And it never worked because it wasn't about me. It was about him and what he was going through. So
you internalized everything he said as something you were doing wrong.
Absolutely.
Right? And you weren't good enough. You were checking whatever the boxes were that you didn't even know existed, the imaginary ones, until you learned at 7, 8 years old to walk on eggshells, to anticipate people's responses, right? To do all of that. And I feel like a lot of people on this journey have those early childhood installations, right? They
Absolutely.
have a parent or a relationship early on creates that in them.
And the thing is, and when I talk to my clients about this too, I feel like sometimes people like to label things as abuse, or they get so caught up in the word and the definition and if I fit in there. And I don't think it has anything to do with it, because technically I don't think he was like doing anything to like leave marks. So like legally, I don't know if it would be characterized as abuse, but that doesn't matter. It's just the feeling, like you said, that I got of like, I am not capable of meeting his expectations. I'm a bad person. Like that's kind of where it started, because with parents like that, I feel like if you just, I remember there was a time where I got like water on the floor after the shower and he would spank me. Like little things that mean nothing in hindsight. Like there's things that parents do when they are like disciplining their kids and it's like serious stuff. I'm sorry. Like if my child left water on the floor, I have a 7-year-old, like that's not going to make me go into like a rage. So it was just like being in that environment. And what he would do a lot is, because I would try to tell my mom, so I would call her and be like, come get me. And he would isolate me from her for like months. And it was devastating. So I know that I used to tell her. I don't know what she would say to me in the moments, but I know my grandmother, she's still alive, and she talks about how it was so weird for her and she couldn't figure out what was going on with me, because she was like, it couldn't have been that bad because you always wanted to go back the next summer. Always.
Right.
So
because every little girl wants a relationship with a dad, right? And every little girl is like, well, if I do the right things, or I'm going to have like the dad I remember, or the good pieces, or, and I think that I resonate with this a lot, because while I didn't go every summer, I deeply wanted a relationship with my father, even though he was actually abusive and he did actually hit my mom. And there was lots of mental and emotional manipulation happening. And there were times that he did physically hurt me. And yet it didn't stop child me from wanting to understand and wanting to have that relationship. And I think that it's really important for us to acknowledge that as kids, we're learning what love is, and we're learning how these caregivers taking care of us how that defines us in our early relationships. And there's not like a child who's going to say, oh, you were mean to me, I'm going to hold a boundary and not be around you. Like that does not compute for a kid, because as a kid, we require our caregivers to be safe. We require them to take care of us, to feed us, house us, clothe us, all the things, but they also are teaching us what it means to be in a relationship, right? And so I think it's important that when we look back, we don't look at our childhood selves with an adult lens. We don't look at, well, I could have, should have. Why did I want to go back? Why and shame ourselves for wanting those relationships, because there's so many kids who they kept the secrets, they kept going back, because that's who we like. That is what we're trying to understand as a child. We're trying to come to terms with, and I think it's really important we recognize where this pattern started, but we don't blame ourselves for being in those situations at all.
Absolutely. It took so many years of therapy for me to understand exactly what you just displayed so beautifully, because I think for the longest time, and I don't think I realized what I was doing, but I was so angry with that little girl for putting up with it for not only just the things that were going on with my dad, but like with friends. And I feel like I got bullied a lot, and it was hard for me to make friends because my mom was like moving me around so much. And I've always had this idea of the person that I was, of like not having a backbone and weak. So then fast forward to me having a daughter that sometimes like she looks so much like me. It's like I'm talking to the child version of myself. For the longest time before I found like a really good therapist to help me through this, I was trying so hard to get her to toughen up and be like, You know, you can't let people treat you like that. Smack them back. Do something. Say this. Do this. And
right, all the things you wish in your mind that you had been as a child.
Yeah, and with working with my therapist is amazing, by the way. I just kind of realized she was just like, you can't make her the person that you want her to be. You have to trust that she's going to do whatever she needs to do. So it took me a minute to get there because I was still like, no, but she has to protect herself. Like, what if somebody does something to her or what? And I'm starting to realize now that she is learning those situations. She does know, like, when the cutoff point for her of if somebody's treating her poorly, like she doesn't want to be friends with them anymore, or if she reaches her breaking point. She has gotten physical in school when she was in kindergarten, and I had to go up in there and advocate for her and say, I've told you several times that this little boy was hurting her. You did nothing about it. So now that she finally retaliated, you want to do, no, we're not doing that. So I trusted her to make her own decision. She made the decision that was right for her, and that little boy didn't pick with her no more. And she's in karate. So all of my fears about like her not being able to defend herself, I'm constructively dealing with that by like putting her in martial arts, teaching her to like have confidence in herself. And if she has to, she can whoop some butt. But
And as a female in this world, like that is not a bad skill to have. But realistically.
But she's also like the sweetest thing. Like she is so sweet. And I think that's what scared me so much. But she's just so loving, so sweet. Like she says the most beautiful things to me sometimes. And I know, like I trust her. So I know because she's so sweet, if she has to take it there, it's valid. Like you have to really push her to get her to that point where she's becoming physical, even with her little brother. So yeah, I just have to learn to trust her. But it's so hard being a parent when you dealt with those things in the past. It just creeps up. And I think I felt like I mastered everything and I was able to fully process things and I was like healed before I became a mom. But like as soon as you have these kids, it's like somebody described it as like your heart is ripped out of your chest and it's just running around trying to kill itself. And you're just like, stop. Don't. It's like, that's what motherhood is like. Like they're constantly trying to kill itself.
It's how it can feel for sure. Because you can't be there to watch and protect in every single moment.
Yeah.
You have to send them off. Trust. It's so hard. And especially if we have, we're carrying childhood wounding. We're carrying, especially as a mom, trauma with our moms, right? Because we can't not operate that way.
Yeah.
We, as much as we say, okay, I'm never going to be my mom, we either are exactly the opposite or exactly the same. Like we respond and react to the way we were raised.
Yeah. Or every
single one of us.
Or a little bit in between. Because I feel like, so back to my mom. So eventually my dad got mad with something that had to do with my mom, but I also felt like it was my fault too. So he ended up leaving for like 5 years. So he resurfaced when I was like 15. And between that time, my mom divorced her second husband. We moved from Alabama to Maryland to live with my grandparents. And my grandmother is a very like strict, like she's not like those warm and fuzzies type grandmothers. Like she can be, she has it in her, but she's very like, like no nonsense, boundaries, rules, chores. My grandfather was a pastor. We were always in church, like that type of grandmother. And she was just so irritated with me because of how I was an angry little girl. I didn't want to move to Maryland. I created this life in Alabama with like my family, and I felt like that was like ripped from me. And then not only when she told me that we were moving, I was like, okay, so we're going back to Tennessee, right? To be with my dad, because that's all we know, right? And she's like, oh no, we're going to Maryland. I was like, Maryland? What are you doing? And I was so upset because I still love my dad, and I was even further from him. And then I called him one day, and he was just like, oh, I'm glad you're in Maryland. And little me didn't understand that, but as an adult, he told me that it was because he was heavy in drugs and he was ready to like cut the cord to figure out his own stuff. So he was glad that he didn't have to be so close to me anymore. So we just started arguing all the time, me and my mother. I just watched her go from relationship to relationship. And in between relationships, she would just be so loving, want to spend all this time with me. And I was just eating it up because I was obsessed with my mom. And then when she would get this boyfriend, it was just like, she's done with me. All she cared about these boyfriends. I'm sure she did the best that she can, but in the eyes of a child, I felt neglected and abandoned every time she would get a new relationship. Then she started dating my best friend's father. That got weird. Like, we're still best friends to this day. It was weird. All of these things. And my grandmother ended up just going like, what is wrong with you? Like, there's something that you're not telling me. She was like dating a pastor in one of our churches, and I had to keep that a secret. And I think that's when I just kind of told my grandmother about it. And like the way that I like cried into her, like sobbing, like the shield went away. And that's when I finally felt seen, like, okay, somebody understands me. So till this day, me and my grandmother, like, are best friends. I love her. I don't know what I'm going to do without her, but she took me to therapy. My therapist didn't like my mom very much. She made it very clear that, no, a lot of this stuff is your mom's fault. Like, she's going to have to get it together. Like, and she would, I didn't know, I don't remember this. Well, I remember it now, but I remember going through her things after she passed away. And there was like a list of things that I could do better, me personally, and things that she could do better. And one of the things that she wrote down is, I'm going to stop telling Chenelle that I'm going to send her away. And I didn't remember that until I read the letter that she did. She used to threaten me all the time of like, you're too much. You need to, like, I'm going to send you to live with your grandmother. I'm going to send you to live with your dad, uncle, somebody, because I can't take it anymore. I'm trying so hard.
Well, and as a little girl who's been feeling abandoned, like, way to just ring the nail there, right?
Yeah. So it was a lot of like people pleasing, but at the same time still standing up for myself. But then I think the narrative that I created in my mind was, wow, like these people are really great because they put up with my shit. Like, I'm not that great of a person, and the people in my life are still there. So they're such good people because I'm so hard to love and deal with. And
because that's what she would repeat, right? This, you're too much, you're too this, you're all the things, and I'm going to send you away. And I have in some instances, even for periods of time, where I've pulled away my love. So therefore, further ingraining, right, that you're the problem.
yeah.
And so what do you have to do to not be the problem? What do you have to do, say, be, etc., in order to make sure that the people around you don't leave?
Yeah. But at the same time, still kind of, I would get so angry and resentful, and I would still stand up for myself and set boundaries. But then I would like come back to the people pleasing. So I felt like that created.
It's like a ping.
Yeah, but to me, it was kind of like stabilizing of like, oh, I'm not so bad. Look, I can still do like nice things for you. So it was really hard, and I think I created this persona within myself of, I'm never going to be like her. I'm going to be the complete opposite of the person that she is. So I felt like she financially was not very smart with like her money, or she had to depend a lot on my grandparents sometimes or other people. And I was like, I'm never going to be like that. I'm never going to have to depend on anyone. I'm going to be a better mother. I'm going to do all of these things. Like, I tried so hard to not be her. And as a parent, when you're trying so hard not to be your parent, sometimes the negative things trigger you. And through a lot of therapy, and I don't feel like you can ever be fully healed. You just kind of deal with things better and things get easier, but it's never like gone. I still get triggered. And when I get triggered, my therapist has really helped me to understand that just because this certain situation is reminding you of what happened to you, it doesn't mean it's the same thing. She makes it very clear that you were traumatized by a lot of the things that happened to you. You are not traumatizing your children. They're just not happy with you. Or you're losing your temper, and moms just lose their shit sometimes, but that doesn't make you a bad parent or abusive. Like, you're not traumatizing them. And like really like reframing that and noticing the difference, it has been huge for me. Because a lot of times I'll be like, oh, like when I'm screaming at them, not that I do it all the time, but when it does come up out of me, I'm like, like I'm just like my dad. Can't. Like she must be so scared. She must be. But I repaired that relationship. And a lot of what I didn't get from my mom or my father is the repair to come back and say, like, I'm so sorry that I treated you this way. Mommy was just having a moment. This has nothing to do with you. Like, there was no repair. It was just the repair was you're hard. And you brought that out of me because you are just like a hard person to love. They didn't say it, but the messaging, that's what I received.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of stays with you.
They were a victim to whatever their external circumstance was, right? Their trauma that they were carrying created this persona that they didn't know how to be accountable for their actions. They were only reacting and responding, and they didn't even understand that they were reacting and responding. They were just, this is happening to me. This is all everybody else's fault. I'm not to blame because who could possibly deal with these situations? And, there's so much that, they were obviously carrying that, they didn't know how to deal with, which you then internalized as being your fault.
Yeah.
And so, what you're able to do with your daughter now is say, okay, this is how I responded. This wasn't the best, but, this is how I was feeling and this is what happened. And so now I'm coming and I'm being accountable and responsible for, what happened. And I'm checking back in and making sure that we're actually okay and that this isn't about you.
Yeah.
That, sometimes we have big emotions and sometimes we don't use them very well.
Which is hard to try to explain to a 7-year-old. Like, she just does not get it. So her whole thing, like she's so sweet and she has a lot of anxiety. And we pray together at night. And sometimes she'll say, like, please let me be good tomorrow so mommy won't get mad at me. And I'm like, you have no control over that. If mommy is mad, like mommy's going to get mad just like how you get mad. Like, remember the movie Inside Out, right? We all have our feelings. They're all valid. But it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with me. You can't make me mad. I can control all of that. And just because I'm angry doesn't mean that I don't love you.
Yep. Yeah. My youngest is my most probably emotionally explosive. And so he's able to understand, sometimes we react in a big way and not how we wanted or intended to. And he feels out of control in those moments and is very much, we're working on, I know that wasn't your intention, but this is how you impacted. And so you have to be accountable to both. Yeah. And he's 9, so
it's hard.
It's hard because even most adults, well, that's not my fault because that's not what I meant. It's not my fault that this is how you took it or how you felt it. And on some extent, yes, we're all responsible for our responses. But if somebody felt harmed, we also can acknowledge that and work on making repairs, especially if it's an important relationship to us.
Yeah, and she
recognized it's a relationship of two people.
Yes. And that's why I love the movie Inside Out. I actually got one of my clients. I see adults now. I don't see children anymore. But one of my clients went to go see it. And she's just like, I was sobbing in the movie theater. Like, the way that movie talks so much about how there are benefits to all of your emotions. And like, you can't just shove it all away. It's just so powerful. So the way that I'm able to talk about feelings with her now, like, I think she's starting to grasp it. Because sometimes I'm just like, remember Joy? She wanted to take over, and you see, like, she made a mess out of everything.
And then they literally suppressed emotions by hiding them subconscious. I mean, they did a beautiful job.
It's beautiful. They did such a great job.
I took my teenagers to the second one when they introduced anxiety and despair and embarrassment.
And anxiety is triggering too. Like, she is. She triggered all.
We all have that.
Yes.
We all have that, right? We all have those pieces, and I think that it sounds like really for you, the big catalyst event was becoming a mother and then being like, okay, I can't do it like that. But how do I do it? How do I do it different when I'm still carrying those things? Because you're right, we're never healed. I don't like the word healed, to be honest with you, because it's all a learning and a growing and an understanding. And we get a bigger and bigger awareness the more we go through this journey. But it's not like the things didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's not like the Band-Aid healed the boo-boo and we're all fixed.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, when I became, like, as soon as I was pregnant with my daughter, things shifted with me, but I still kind of felt like I was doing okay with managing being a wife, being a mom, being a business owner, being a daughter, because my mom kind of became my child. So I was pretty much her mom. Just being a good granddaughter, doing all the things. I felt like I was doing okay, even though hindsight, looking back on it, I wasn't. Then my mom passed away in 2023 and I completely shut down. Like, I shut down. Like, everything just became so much. And I was just like, I don't know how to manage everything that I'm already trying to manage while grieving, while taking care of her affairs. Because she didn't have it lined up and it was very sudden. So it was just, it's almost 2025. I'm still taking care of stuff from her estate. I couldn't operate anymore. And I've never experienced that before. So I had to, through therapy, really learn that I could no longer go back to those people-pleasing things because I had to start taking care of myself. So now.
So we had becoming a mom. They feel like we're doing okay.
Yeah.
And then your mom passes all the mom stuff. Now, for all the listeners, my mom just passed a month ago.
Yeah.
So I'm right here with you in this right now. And, it all comes up.
Yeah.
It's all, we only spent 2 weeks in hospice and, but in that time she was very much about nothing unsaid. So at least there was some closure in a lot of things, but everything came
That's
up.
a lot.
All of the hurt and all of the pain. And she wanted it out. And I think for her, she didn't want to carry that. And she didn't want us to carry those things anymore, knowing that while we could talk to her in a sense, it wasn't quite the same as having her being able to respond and to be accountable. And so when your mom goes, especially when you're a mom yourself, it's a whole new catalytic event because that relationship, in a sense, it's like frozen in time now.
Yeah.
And there's no more conversations. There's no more a new, human, at least, relationship that you can.
Yeah.
And so you said you shut down completely. And so what was that like? How did that manifest in your other relationship?
Ooh. I feel like my relationships with everyone has changed forever, just because my husband said that, the people-pleasing things that you would do before, that's how I knew you loved me. Like, you were showing me love. And now I have to figure out different ways of showing him that same appreciation and that same love that feels authentic to myself. Because what I would do is I would run myself ragged doing things in the background that he didn't even realize I was doing. And now through a lot of like conversation and communication, I'm able to explain to him like, no, I'm overwhelmed because I'm doing all of this other things. He's like, I didn't even know those are things that needed to be taken care of. We can help you with that. Like, we're reorganizing our life. And I'm so grateful that he has been able to go through this journey with me and be so understanding, because talking with clients, sometimes they don't have that support system. Or it's just as simple as like people continuing to get frustrated with me because I'm not on my phone as much. Like, I can't, I'm recognizing how overstimulated I get. And I'm sure I felt this way before, but I was so dissociated that I wasn't feeling it. But now, like with the TV going off and then the kid turns on Alexa and then,
I've had those moments. Like, mommy needs a time. I need everybody off of me.
Who let the dogs out is going off, and then the kids are fighting over there, and then Brett's on the phone, and then it's so overstimulating. We got a puppy, and the puppy is like running rampant trying to chase the cat. It's just ridiculous. So it's like things like that. I'm like, I need a break, and I go like, I get it, punny.
I'm gonna lose it. Okay, so how do we model? I'm feeling overstimulated. What do I do?
Yeah.
And like for me, I think for a little while you start, okay, that's not okay. We have to hold it together. But realistically, what we're doing is modeling for our children. When you get overstimulated, when it's too much, what are some other options? Right? So how do you take space? How do you, and actually say so? I'm feeling overwhelmed. So I'm going to go take a minute and I need everybody out of my space for a minute.
And my son specifically, he's like attached to me. He does not like it when mommy needs a minute. But it's just, what I learned is that it's not that I'm not doing things for other people anymore. It's coming from a genuine place of, I want to do this for you because I have the energy to do so, versus no matter what is going on with me, I have to do this thing for you so you don't leave me. And the difference is huge with that.
The difference is huge. In my own journey, I had this belief for a very long time that I would be okay if my kids were okay. And I had a very specific set of things that meant that they would be okay. They needed both parents around. They needed this type of opportunities, this type of mom, I had this whole picture, which was not what I grew up with, because I wasn't okay. And so then I built this picture of what that meant. And it was my role to keep that picture together. And so that's what mattered, was this fantasy world that I had created. And, through my journey, I learned eventually that I was backwards. It was completely backwards. And it wasn't that my kids were going to be okay based on some arbitrary criteria, but that I actually needed to be okay first. And my kids, and all kids, really, they need at least one stable, healthy parent. They ideally, yes, there's both, but in situations where that's not possible, one stable, healthy parent who is focusing on themselves and then able to extend that and take care of the kids, that they can pull their safety and their security from that person. And that's actually how they're okay. The better I am, the better my kids.
Yes.
Not the other way around.
Because my kids say all the time, like, they talk to me about how they want me to be like this silly version. Like, I'm the type of mom that will turn on like Disney classic music on the Alexa and then just like dance around and play around and do stuff like that. And they love that side of me so much. And one day I just kind of realized, like, wow, I'm able to give them this when I take care of myself. It doesn't come out of me. Like I said, I'm very like, I can't fake it. So it's not like I can fake like, I can't be doing all that. Like, I have to feel it. So in order to give them the mom that they desperately want so badly, I have to take care of myself. I have to self-resource. And figuring out ways of what I need in situations, it's still a journey. I still don't know sometimes. I'm still confused on what's wrong with me, and am I sick, or am I just mentally exhausted? Did I do too much at the gym today? Like, what's going on with me? Like, sometimes I just don't know, but I just try every day to do my best. And I think so many parents say, like, I'm doing my best. And I know I can personally say this. I guess it's just something that you have to know within yourself. I don't think my father did his best. Like, I can't say that about him. He can say whatever he wants. Like, he might have a different idea of what his best was, and that's okay. That's okay, because I don't know everything about him. But I know, like, if my children, because I feel like you can't really control how you affect your children or what traumatizes them, what doesn't. Like, you can't control it. Some kids get beat and they grow up and they're fine. Some do, and it traumatizes. We can't control that. But what I can say is, when my children grow up, I will be able to hold myself accountable, validate their feelings and their experiences, and I will be able to say honestly that I did my best. I'm not perfect, but I did my best.
Yeah. No, and I think that's, being able to be in those places every moment, that in itself is right? Being able to say, despite all these things and all of the challenges, I did different. And it's not that I didn't have those reactions, but I, made repairs. I was accountable. I, took action to take better care of myself when I recognized that I'm not doing well. And we're not, no one's perfect.
No.
Like, there is no such thing as a perfect parent.
Yes.
But, raising children who, have this understanding and this model for themselves, because you had to go figure this all out yourself, right? You had to go through lots of therapy, through lots of trial and error, kind of understand how you may operate differently.
Yeah.
Without that, you repeat, right?
And also, when you feel like not confident in your ability as a mom, I feel like it's so easy for you to look at other mothers and say that is a perfect mom. And what I'm realizing is the more that I build relationships with other people, like I have a really good friend who we have children. We were pregnant at the same time with our kids. So they're all the same age. So I feel like we're going through things in a very similar manner. And I remember when we got a little closer and she just kind of broke that seal of like, no, not perfect. I freak out in the month. Like, really? You? Okay. Like, 'cause I'm telling you, like, she makes bread. She's the type of mom. Like, I see her on Snapchat.
But it's funny. Those are the things that you checked. Perfect mom.
I would,
right?
oh my
You
God.
had this little check
Yes.
box.
And I was like, she's
Because
so,
I've made bread, but I promise you, I'm not perfect.
I can't make no bread now. Oh God, I can't. And I feel like I can barely take a shower every day, let alone think about making bread. But it's just like certain things that you see in other parents and how they respond around you. You're like, oh, wow, like, I wish I could be like that. And then what you realize is that what I'm starting to realize is that there's a lot of families out there who just don't talk about it, and rightfully so. So some stuff is just not appropriate for the dinner table. Like, I'm not going to sit there and tell people
right?
all of that kind of stuff. But my daughter,
We're not all living Instagram
Yes.
lives, right? We're not all just this picture perfect.
Yes.
And that's, that's part of what I want to, why I'm sharing all these things in my life and the hard things and on this show is because I want people to hear that they're not alone.
You are not alone. No.
All of these challenges and these childhood things, mother relationships and father relationships, you're not the only one who is, feeling like it's too much and overwhelmed and shutting down. And you're not the only one who is struggling.
Yes.
And I think that's really the big thing is because the point of being, in my mind, being an awakened mother is to be aware of those things. It's not to do it all perfectly. It's to actually broaden our lens and go, okay, all of this happened and how do I want to take a step back and now respond and now repair and now go forward in a way that's supportive to me and to my kids. And so my next question really for you is like, what advice would you give moms out there? I know this is your livelihood essentially, but if you could share some advice about, when those things happen, what actually, or what are the actionable things that moms can do to start to shift this for themselves?
Yeah. I definitely feel like finding support in whatever that looks like for you. Because of course I'm a therapist and I recognize the power of therapy, but I have such a great support system outside of just my therapist. I have a dietitian now that's helping me feed my body with things that's going to fuel me naturally so that I can do all of those things. I have people who are able to watch my children that I really, really trust. I have a trauma-informed fitness instructor who has also really helped me change my life and shift my mindset and help me to connect with my body a little bit more so I know what's going on, which is scary and overwhelming, but good at the same time. But just kind of figuring out what your needs are and making sure that you're getting those needs met, however that works. So that doesn't mean that, you wake up in the morning, you go to the gym, you do this and you stay on this rigid schedule of things that you need. It's just kind of waking up, knowing what your needs are, doing your best to get those needs met. And if you get those needs met in a month or so, just knowing all of those things. And sometimes what I find with my clients in therapy, it's just hard for people to get to that point, to figure out what their needs are, because sometimes you're just for example, my mom passed away. So it's very easy to just be I'm going through things because my mom died and I'm grieving, which is true, right? But I don't want to neglect the root issues. And the root issues are some of the things that I had to do because she was around and the things that I've gone through throughout childhood and some things that are associated with her as a person. If you ignore the root causes and just talk about the things that have happened because of it, you're not going to get to the point where you're feeling better because you're just putting Band-Aids on things. You got to get deep in there and figure out the root issues. So sometimes when I'm meeting with women who have relationship anxiety and they're married or they have a partner, and I hear this a lot of fix me. There's something wrong with me. I need to figure out why I'm not having sex with my husband so much. And we need to figure out what's going on with me. And I'm it's not that easy. Like, we need to figure out, like, why don't you feel safe? Why don't you want to? What's wrong with not wanting it as often as your husband does? Like, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, what's going on in the roots down here? That this is just like manifesting up here. We can't put band-aids on this by like doing it anyway. Like, no.
Right. That's not giving you body autonomy.
No.
That's not actually connection.
Yeah.
If it feels forced, right? There's so many things like that. Like, I'm reacting this way with my spouse, with my coworkers, etc. Okay,
I need anger management. Like, I need to get over these things quicker. I'm like, no, what? Like, let's talk about the thing that's actually upsetting you. And like, do you have support around that? And a lot of times what I hear is, no, like, if I stop doing this, like, he'll leave me. Or I've had clients who have said, like, I'm actually not happy in this relationship, but I don't feel like I can leave financially. So I'm just good. We might as well just end here.
Just suck it up.
Yeah. Like, but I feel like it's still helpful for them because they're able to recognize that this is not the relationship. Like, they're not happy in the relationship, but they're also making the decision to stay. So to me, that's still powerful.
There's still something to be accountable to, right? There's still an acknowledgement of
Yes.
it. Okay, so what are your boundaries then? What are those lines? If you're choosing to stay, knowing that's not what you want, what does that mean? What does that mean? Are you okay with what that means? Because at least we're being honest with ourselves.
Yeah. So just really finding the root causes of what's happening with you, which is not like a quick and dirty type of thing. It takes a lot of processing. There's plenty of books that could like help you with it, or going to a therapist or going to a coach or somebody, but just really figuring out what are these needs and then figuring out a way to support yourself through that.
Yeah. So I'm hearing support in all facets and then digging into what those root causes are that, cause those responses, and then, examining how you want to go forward, knowing and understanding more of yourself. Right. And that's, to me, that's what an awakening is. It's just a waking up to more of ourselves, more of our innate power, and more of our, actually, we are making some of these choices.
Which is not
We
easy.
are choosing. It's really hard, and it doesn't feel good sometimes because if it's not our fault, then, we won't get scolded like we as children, right? That's where our mind is going. But realistically, we're adults. And so now as a mom ourselves, what are we modeling for kids?
Yeah.
For me, that always is how I come back to, how do I want to model for my children going forward, and what I want for them? And okay, so now I got to walk my talk.
Yes.
If I'm going to say this is how we're going to be, I got to do that. And I got to show them, because as we know from our own experience, children learn by watching us. And as much as we want to say, okay, they should go do X, Y, Z, until we show them what that means and what that looks like, they can't.
Yeah. I think my daughter dropped some type of cuss word because I cuss like a sailor. I need to do better. And I just looked at her and I was like, why did you say that? Like, I didn't know what? I was legit like confused because I did not understand. And she was like, you say it? I was like, oh God. Like, yeah, you're right. I do. And I shouldn't. And mommy's going to work on that. So I could have just been like, do as I say and not as I do, which is, I feel like, how we grew up. But that doesn't work.
Totally.
Oh, you got to walk.
It doesn't. And I think when my kids, it's like, they also will swear, especially each other. I'm like, okay, so let's at least talk, where society's expectations and other people's responses, and then you get to choose how you operate within those. I can tell you at school, they're not going to like that. And so if you're going to choose to say those words, like, understand what you're saying and understand the consequences. I also have to, if I'm to swear in a meeting with certain people, that's not going to go over so well.
And there's natural consequences. That's what I'm hearing you say. There's natural consequences.
Exactly.
Because I cuss like a sailor, but for some reason, I'm telling you, my grandmother's my best friend. She's like a God-fearing woman, very old. If I was to, I think I've cussed in front of her once in my entire life, and she just let it go because the kids were just doing too much. And I think she looked at me like, yeah, you're having a moment. But for some reason, I'm able to turn it off around her. Like, for once in 34 years is a good track record.
Right. And so you've learned, okay, this is not somebody who received this well. And so I can hold that away. But just as, if you were to go to your kid's school, you're less likely for it to come out in those scenarios,
Yeah.
right? And so, yes, I'm a firm believer of natural consequences
Yeah.
because that's how I learned. I had to go off the deep end and had to go learn. And I think we all have a version of that.
Yes, and I think something else that I learned in therapy is that I have to make sure that she gets the natural consequences. Like, that's important. I can't fix it by me telling her what to do. And she's not having that real world experience of like, oh, if I'm like showing people my butt and they feel uncomfortable, they might not want to be my friend. Like that's something that she has to learn for herself. I can't just like say it.
You can protect her from the choices that she makes. And if anything, what I have found that it's actually important that they make those mistakes while they're in a safe environment, because while you're not protecting them from the consequence, you can talk about it with them. You can be there with them. And if they start to learn now, this is like the learning time versus when you're not there and the consequences are bigger and the challenges are bigger. And so like almost encouraging those consequences and learning opportunities because like that's what childhood is for.
And it's so uncomfortable to watch your kid like go through all these things, but it's like you said, it's so necessary. And just the other thing is just surround yourself with other moms who are real, because there are so many of them that are so performative and they're trying to pretend like they're perfect. And I cannot stand being around moms like that. Like, I just need you to be real. Like, I'm not saying like just broadcast how you like beat your kids or anything. I'm just saying like, just talk about how frustrating it is. Like, I remember when I got the puppy and I took the puppy with me to drop the kids off at daycare. And someone's like, he's so cute. I was like, he's also a pain in my ass. And they were like, why would you say that about a puppy? I was like, are you kidding me? Like, can we not say that puppies are annoying? Like, no, it's just a thing. I didn't say I hate
this
them.
thing has woken me up how many times and has peed on things and like
can we normalize just being real? Like, I'm not saying I'm going to give the dog away. I'm just saying, hey, I still love him. He still wants me. Like, so just surround yourself with people who are real and like not people who are performative or like trying to pretend like they're perfect. And there's a difference between just knowing your surroundings, like maybe knowing when to talk about it and when not, and maybe you're not too comfortable with that person and they don't want to say, like, that's different versus somebody that you've known for like 20 years and they're still trying to put on a facade like they're like a leave it to beaver type of mom. Like, I think we need to be real.
No, and that's really, just as we want to model for our kids, we want the people around us to be modeling, the person that we want to be and being real, accountable and honest. And, the full spectrum, because truthfully, life isn't all shiny rainbows and unicorns. It's just not. And that's the beauty of it, is there's color and shape and shadow and all of these other pieces that make up this experience for us. And, we can hide away from all of that, or we can acknowledge it and actually see the beauty in it. And that's, part of my journey is finding those gifts in those really big, challenging times and highlighting them, but highlighting them by talking about the challenges and talking about this isn't feeling good, but this is what I'm overcoming through it with. And this is how I have look at death now. This is how I look at traumatic experiences now. This is how I operate with my kids now, especially because that's, to me, as moms, it always comes back to parenting our kids and going forward in a way that is supportive as mom and for our children. And so, do you have any final thoughts or final words? I will put all of your information in the show notes for anybody who would like to get in touch with you. I know you're licensed in just a couple of states. So if you want to share anything about, the work you do and ways that you can also support other people if they're looking for that type of support as well, please. Please do.
I so appreciate you having me. And like you said before, when we had our conversation, I felt like a couple of weeks ago, I feel like we just clicked, like we understood each other. And I think just platforms like this are so important for moms, because sometimes we need somewhere to go where we can listen and say, like, I'm not alone. The feeling of being alone in your situation, like somehow it just creeps into your mind when you're struggling of like, I'm the only one that's going through this. And you're doing such good work of like just making people feel seen. I think we talked a lot today about like really monumental things that have happened in our life that has shaped us into the people we are. Sometimes you can struggle and nobody died. There was no divorce and you're still struggling, and that's okay too. Like whatever the thing
100%.
is, like it
100%.
just, accept where you're at and just do the best that you can. And maybe you can't get help right now. Maybe you have to wait for another month for daycare fees to go away. My son, my youngest is out of kindergarten and I don't have to pay daycare, and I feel like $1 million right now. Just because that's like another mortgage. So that's the example that I gave. But whatever the thing is that you need, just be patient with yourself. This is not a race. It's just a journey that you're always going to walk through. So I am licensed in Maryland, Virginia, and DC. So I live in the DMV. So if you live in one of those states and you want to reach out to me for therapy, she'll have my website on the show notes, but it's selfcare4.com. I also run mother hunger groups, which are virtual groups. And that's another thing that I talk about a lot in my mother hunger groups of disenfranchised grief, which is like when someone dies, people come around and they send flowers and they want to know how they can support you, and you feel that support. But when you're dealing with mother hunger, which is like just a disconnect from your mom, or you don't have the best relationship with your mom, nobody is coming over and trying to help you through it. So it's very isolating. It's very lonely. When you talk about it, sometimes other women don't get it. And they're just like, oh, you can't talk to your mom that way. Like, what's wrong with you? You only get one mom. What if she dies? You feel guilty then? Like all of those things that don't validate your feelings. So that's why the mother hunger groups, I feel like, are so monumental. So my groups are virtual. So it's a psychoeducation group. It's not therapy. So anybody in the country can join. But we just sit together. We talk through about the key things in mother hunger and just support each other, and watching the women support each other. And them having like a safe space to talk about these things we don't always have a safe space to talk about that kind of stuff because society wants to think that moms are perfect. It's a healing process. It's really powerful.
Yeah. Well, and it can really help you just know you're not alone, but really like see the all in examples about it in so many ways. And I think that is so amazing. And I think that the more of us who realize that we're not the only ones, and that we can overcome a lot, doesn't mean the challenges go away, but that we bring so much more now to our relationships with our children because of those experiences we've had, and we're able to help others and help ourselves and help our kids. And that's really the whole point of this experience, right? Is to learn and grow and share. And so I'm so grateful for you sharing your story and sharing what you do, and ways that others who are struggling might be able to reach out and get some help, because I feel like as moms, we think we're going to do it all by ourselves, and everything is just, that's the picture perfect model.
Yeah.
Right? The nuclear family doesn't mean anything, and we've lost the community. And I for one think that that's really how we grow, is we grow together.
Absolutely. And I also have a podcast called Reality Check Therapy Hour that had nothing to do with mom stuff, but we just talk about therapy. I mean, we talk about reality TV from a therapist's point of view. So,
funny.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun
there.
That's fun. We cuss like sailor.
I bet there's sort of a like unwinding of what's going on over there.
Because a lot of the stuff, like what I find with people online is they talk so like therapeutically, like they use the word gaslighting all the time. That is so wrong. Or they call everybody narcissists when they don't agree with them. And I'm just like, no, like let's talk about it from a therapeutic.
There's a legit criteria to meet to be a narcissist.
Yes, just because this guy was an asshole to you this one time does not make him a narcissist. Just because you don't agree with each other doesn't mean he's trying to gaslight you. He really believes what he's saying, and y'all just need to come to an understanding. So,
right. Yeah. No, I think I'm going to go check it out because that sounds like it would be kind of funny. Thank you again so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on Awakened Motherhood. I hope today's episode inspired you and offered support for your journey. Remember, your story has the power to ignite change, and your resilience is a testament to your strength as a mother. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Share it with other mothers who might benefit from our stories of empowerment and healing. I invite you to connect with me on social media platforms at Amanda Quick Healing, or visit my website, amandaquickhealing.com, for more information on other ways to work with me. Until next time, keep embracing your divine self and discovering your warrior mama within. Thank you for being part of Awakened Motherhood, where your story is the spark for change.